What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about work culture in Canada. This is a really interesting Reddit discussion that I wanted to take a look at to see what Canadians have to say about what working in Canada is like. Work culture in Canada, work life balance, and how that compares to working here in America. So, the question that was posed to Canadians is about work culture in Canada. This person said, I want to start by saying I am in Canada. So I think this is a Canadian. They're saying, I'm not sure if it's only organizations I've been exposed to. Is our work culture in Canada like America? As in, where people work past 5 p.m., we are not taking paid time off, and that's seen as a badge of honor. Okay, so already we're kind of diving into these things that definitely define work culture here in America. I think compared to a lot of countries around the world, it's somewhat known that Americans don't have a very good work life balance. We kind of live to work instead of work to live, as they say. And this is definitely true. Like, people are encouraged to work past 5 p.m., work past closing, kind of prove yourself. And to some extent, or maybe this is the American in me coming out, that's just normal. Like, you kind of want to, if you want to move up in your company, traditionally, you kind of want to stick out. You almost want to be seen working hard or staying late, whether or not that helps the company or not. Not taking paid time off. I don't know if this is something Canadians can relate to, but yeah, it's definitely, I mean, you have a pretty limited number of paid time off anyway here in America. Actually, as far as the United States goes, like, we're one of the few developed countries where there is no federal law here that mandates a certain number of paid vacation days or sick days or maternity leave. None of that. None of that is mandated by law. It's just up to the companies here in the United States to determine what they're gonna give you as an employee, if that makes sense. And I'm pretty sure that's not how it works in Canada. So already there's a lot of differences kind of poking themselves out to me here. Let's keep going. I've seen so many TikToks, oh, okay, about the difference between American and European work culture, and I've heard about it my whole life. So I wonder, what's everyone's experience been in Canada? Mine has been great. Wow, like there's already something you won't hear too often here in the United States. What's your work experience been like? Oh, it's been great. It's like, oh, I've never heard that before. Though I haven't worked for many companies. Also, want to add, I don't have a problem with working. I just don't think American working environments are healthy. Thank you to anyone who responds. Definitely not healthy. I mean, for many reasons. Going back to like the sick days and vacation days, like I think on average, like American companies, you get like 11 vacation days a year. I'm pretty sure that's pretty low compared to a lot of places in the rest of the world. We get like 8 sick days. Like, if you're sick more than 8 days that year, like, you're out of luck. You better go in and just be coughing on everyone till they say, oh, get out of here. We're not going to pay you, though. But get out of here. And again, this is like, it does depend on where you work. If you're in America working at a big corporate conglomerate, they're going to treat you more like a number, and you are going to get a certain amount of sick days where you literally can't be sick more than that, and vacation. And if you work at a smaller company where you actually like know the team and know the staff, maybe have a relationship with the owner, what a novel concept. It's probably going to be different. It's probably going to be a bit better. Let's see what Canadians have to say about this. Enough of me yakking about and complaining about the circumstances of working in America. What do Canadians have to say about this? I think we end up somewhere in the middle. Okay, so we're kind of judging this on America, kind of bad. Um, Canada in the middle, and then like Europe, like is like this just amazing working utopia. Apparently, I don't know. With the more extreme versions, depending on the company or the boss, right? My last job, I got a 10-minute lecture for needing an afternoon off for an annual medical appointment. Really? Well, it's like if you need time off for a medical appointment, I will say, at least for that, usually in America, like you're gonna get the time you need for medical needs to a point. And then if you exceed that, you're not paid, but you can probably get the day off. You're just not going to be paid. That's a whole other thing that's different than America versus Canada, I think, is in America, you're actually kind of nervous to get fired. You don't want to take too many days off or push your luck or because if you're fired from your job in America, that's a very big deal because most Americans we depend on our jobs for our healthcare insurance plans. We need our job to have that insurance coverage so we can go to the doctor in the hospital and afford it. That's a thing. So if you get fired or if you lose your job in America, it's a very big deal. Very, very big deal. Not just because you lost your job, but there's this overhanging shadow of now I don't have healthcare coverage that my job benefits that my job was giving me. And I think that's a huge difference between working in America versus working in Canada, is that is a thing. What else were they saying? But their current boss, I was very sick last summer with almost had pneumonia. I didn't get any grief or questioning when I was coming back. I missed 2 weeks of work, and they didn't even deduct it from their sick days. What? Yeah, so your experience can vary a lot by the sound of it, even in Canada as well. 2 weeks of work, that would never fly. Miss 2 weeks of work, and they didn't even take your sick days for that. That would never. That's the most Canadian thing I have seen in this whole discussion. Oh yeah, 2 weeks of work, no problem. In the Yukon, we work just hard enough. Definitely more laid back here. Up in the Yukon, who even knows what's going on in the Yukon, right? As long as you're doing your job, um, that's hard enough. Okay, as long as everything keeps running, good. That actually sounds nice. Right, right. Well, that's the way it should be. You'd think. That I think is lost a bit in America is you should just go and do your job, and if you do a good job, everyone's happy. But instead, in a lot of companies in America, you have to almost pretend to do more just for appearances. It's just based on appearances, just because you want to be seen as a hard worker. But then sometimes, because of management and middle management, if you're too good and you're at a lower level, your manager just wants to keep you there because you're very good at that. And then you don't get promoted. You can't win. You just can't win, can you? In Toronto, the culture is very much like that. Like very dog eat dog, very difficult, I imagine. Toronto, huge Canadian city. Not so much in the rest of Canada. It was a very noticeable change when I moved from Toronto to Vancouver. So they're saying it was more laid back, more reasonable, healthier work life balance when they moved out of Toronto, out of this huge major city. That makes more sense to me. But I think here in America, this concept of work-life balance just isn't very healthy, no matter where you are. It's just part of American culture. I'm even thinking about like maternity leave, like parental leave now. Like in Canada, I'm pretty sure I heard you can get. How much time off can you get in Canada if you're having a baby? Like, can a mom get maternity leave? How much? Like, here in the United States, you're pretty lucky to get 3 months of paid maternity leave or half pay maternity leave. Apparently, I thought that was normal. Like, but I'm starting to hear that's kind of outrageous. I think in Canada, like I saw, can you get like a year off? Is that it sounds crazy to me. Is that true? Is that the truth of it? In Canada, you can get like up to a year off work. I mean, it makes sense. Don't get me wrong. It's just like that's how different. That's how different the work culture mindset is between Americans and Canadians. Like having a year off, sounds insane. Like, that just would not happen. That's not a thing. But it makes sense, though, if I can open my brain up to the possibilities. It makes sense because, it's a baby, for crying out loud. Like, a baby is basically a full-time job in and of itself. And you're recovering from giving birth. And you're not ready to go back to work after 3 months. Yet somehow Americans do it. Like, when you're forced to do it, you find a way, I guess. But a 3-month-old is a whole ton of work still. Like, it's still a baby, barely out of being newborn. And man, being able to be with your newborn baby for a year, that would be huge. That would actually, like, I think, de-stress so many Americans. I think that's a huge one, actually, that goes underrated, not talked about enough here in America. What else have Canadians have to say about this? Depends on the sector, too. I'm in Ottawa, and my friends in civil engineering are what you described. So very hardworking, having to stay late. But the ones in the government are the most laid-back people I've seen. Probably closer to what you've seen in Europe. That almost makes sense to me, because if you're working a government job, like, no offense, but it's not a real business in a sense. Like, it's government money, it's going to be there. You don't have to make a profit. You don't have to worry about the government failing or succeeding as a business. So you're probably, like, not going to be held up to as strict of a sort of work circumstances as if you were at a normal company that was, like, going to live or die based on its profits or whatnot. The government's just gonna, like, it's gonna be there. So your job is safe. So that actually makes sense that government jobs are more laid back, now that I think of it. Maybe we just all need government jobs. Is that the answer? I don't know. But and then at normal company jobs, definitely here in the United States, like, they are running you ragged. Like, they are trying, the employee labor laws are so relaxed here. Like, companies can just do anything. Basically, they can, the benefits you get changes from company to company in America. You never know what benefits you're gonna get, or it's madness. What else do we have here? Used to be a keener at work. A keener? Used to be a keener at work. I feel like I've heard this word. Is that, like, bad? Being a keener at work? I think that's bad. Now I act my wage. Is this some kind of Canadian joke or something? Now I act my... Okay. It's not as bad as the United States, but it's worse here than every other first world Western country. Oh, there you go. I am trying to kind of list out what I think are the biggest differences from what I can see here and what I know between Canadian work culture and American work culture. And it sounds like Canada is definitely healthier, definitely better, definitely has a lot more benefits. And there's actually laws that protect employees much more in Canada. I think for all those reasons, it's better. And Canadians get healthcare coverage from their taxes, like, universally covered, which is so different than here as well, and really changes the dynamic you have with your employer here. So I agree, Canada is definitely not as bad as here in the US. I don't know how it compares to other Western countries or European countries. I don't really know enough about that. I'd also say choose unionized work so you don't have to deal with this. Is there more unions in Canada? I don't know anything about unions in Canada. That's something that sort of exists here in the United States to protect workers' rights. I've never been told I have to work overtime. Wow. Oh my God. Lucky you. I've never been denied a requested day off. See, that's very different. Like, you definitely have a very reasonable chance of being denied, like, vacation or days off working in America. That's totally normal. Typically, I just email. I say I won't be in. You just say you won't be in. It's not even like, can I have this day off? I'd like to not come in. It's like, I'm not coming in today. I'm the boss. As long as someone on my team knows I'm not dead, it's not an issue. Wow. That's very relaxed. Maybe that's not how it is in all Canadian work and companies, but because that sounds very relaxed, like probably a close relationship with the team. Here's an American. I'm American. I've exclusively worked in retail, and when I went to work in Canada, the work ethic was similar, except Canadians lacked a sense of urgency. What does that mean? Canadians lacked a sense of urgency, like a sense of you could be fired at any moment. Because it's I don't know for sure, but I think it's easier to be fired here in America than in Canada. Although it's not that easy to get fired in America. Like, just legally speaking, it's not that easy. But I've certainly seen people fired for sure. I asked my fellow coworker in Alberta, and he told me something that changed my view of the American work culture forever. He said most Canadian benefits are provided by the government, not the employer. Exactly. Exactly what I was thinking about. So, unless you're looking into moving up within a Canadian company, everyone gets the same benefits regardless of how hard you work your job. Oh, yes. This is so fascinating. Yes, because the government is more involved in Canadian companies and employer-employee relationships, it's safer in a way. It's safer at your job in Canada, in a sense, because you get the benefits no matter how hard you do your job. If you move up in an American company, you're going to get better benefits. If in the US, everyone fights to stay on, because not all jobs provide the same health insurance, maternity leave, paid time off, and essential benefits. Absolutely true. Like, imagine that. Yes, that definitely explains why it's more of a kill or be killed attitude here in America. We are literally fighting amongst ourselves for higher positions because it will literally get you better benefits, more time off, higher, of course, higher pay, but better health insurance package, and other benefits. Literally, yeah, yeah. That's a very good point. Very, very good point. You're likely to run into this work culture more here because we work so closely with Americans. Okay, right. Maybe that explains why it seems like Canada has a different work culture than America, but it's not drastically, ridiculously different. There are some similarities, and I think it's exactly this. It's because Canada is close to America, and we interact a lot. We work together in a lot of circumstances. That makes sense. I will give you a small example of the difference between the US and Canadian work cultures. It's gained from having worked in both countries. Okay, this person worked in both Canada and America, has experienced the work culture in both countries. This is what they say. I worked for a firm that was supplying a telco startup with IT staff in a more senior role. That gig was a lot of fun to work on until they were purchased by a US group. Then it became hell after becoming a US company. One of my team came to me after meeting with the new executive, where she had been yelled at and a chair thrown. A chair thrown? Okay, this is like, we're getting into like the movie. This is like a TV show or something. It's not normal for people to throw chairs and stuff. I mean, America, it's not the greatest work environment, but you're not really throwing chairs. Although, I wouldn't be shocked how much does that happen? Do you think there's one chair thrown a day in an American company somewhere? Probably. You would think. Maybe two. I told her I'd take care of it and escalated it with management. In the meantime, I said don't accept meetings in his office. When told this, he asked, is it so you can document me being an a-hole? Because they wanted the meetings to take place at his desk because they were having meetings with the chair thrower. This executive who said, oh, you want me to come have public meetings so you can document my horrible behavior? Well, yes. We were contracted staff and could be removed easily. That's part of the game. But this guy also wanted to fire his own staff at the drop of a hat. A bit extreme, but I think things are a titch more mellow in the US. And yes, there are rectums in Canada, but this does illustrate a major difference. Right, There's exceptions to this. Probably bad work environments in Canada and really great ones in the United States. But apparently, we have more chair throwers here that then want to fire you for daring to question that they threw a chair. I think it's hard to compare Canada to Europe because Europe isn't a monolith. What is a monolith? I'm not sure. My partner is Swiss, and compared to Switzerland, he has the most overall time off, the least pressure, and the shortest working hours of his career. He says it's like night and day. So Europe is still very different to Canada by the look of it. We were living in Ireland, and while I find the work culture here to be about the same as Canada, he finds it more relaxed. So industry plays a role as well. Interesting. This person had a European spouse from Switzerland, and they said Switzerland is just cakewalk compared to Canada. Couldn't even imagine if they lived in America. But I think that's a pretty good place to stop. This is a fascinating topic. I'd just go on and on reading about this. It is very insightful seeing what Canadians had to say about work life, work culture in Canada. And on the whole, it basically sounded like it's a little better to work in Canada, a little more stress-free, better benefits, more work security, and a number of other reasons. Not that I'm trying to complain about existing in America or working in America. America still feels like a very great place, depending on where you live and the job you get. It can be an amazing place. But if we're talking about, like, in general, the work culture definitely seems better in Canada. I'll definitely admit that. So this was actually quite insightful to learn about, I'll say. Very interesting. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on work culture in Canada. That'd be very interesting to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian culture, stuff about Canada I've never learned before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.